All right. After a 2 week streak of jumping on right at 4 o'clock, we are tardy once again. It's 4:03 Eastern, and I am joined by the lovely and talented Raphaelle Johnson while Noah is away on vacation. Raph, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. I appreciate that intro too. Yeah. It's always nice to
Absolutely,
have people
man.
say good things about you. Yeah.
You should hear what Noah's been saying about you, man, but we won't go into that here.
All right.
All right, man. So before we get into some questions from the chat here, let's just go ahead and take a quick assessment of where we are in fantasy hoops. It is Tuesday, so for tonight, what are the notable injuries? Who are the notable fill ins that fantasy managers should be taking a look at for Tuesday? We have Celtics, Warriors, Grizzlies, Pelicans, Spurs, Bucks, Suns, Trailblazers. Not to put you on the spot, but are there any streaming options for tonight that catch your eye just right off the bat from that 4 game lineup?
Oh, I kind of feel like this guy should be past the streaming point because of his place within the rotation. But I'd say someone like a Brandon Podziemski with the Warriors. I think he's a big one. Jonathan Kuminga. I think there may be some managers who are a bit scarred because he's been a bit touch and go when he's gotten extended minutes in the past. But with Draymond Green suspended for whoever knows how long, I think those two and Moses Moody are going to be guys to keep an eye on. But I kind of lean Podziemski because he's starting now. And I think I like what he's shown thus far. So I think that would be my main guy right now for people to grab and probably hold on to for a bit too.
And is Podziemski your number one waiver wire ad right now? If you're hitting the wire, anybody you take over him at this point?
Man, I don't think so. Not for me personally. I think he's someone that you have to have given the circumstances and how well he's played. So yeah, he would be tops on my board right now, personally.
All right. And without meaning to bury the lead here, John Morant back in action tonight after 25 game suspension. The 6-19 Grizzlies, can they afford to bring him along slowly? Are they looking to tank, or do you think he will come out with 35 minutes and just obliterate the potentially shorthanded Pelicans? What are we expecting from Ja tonight?
I think they're just going to let him go. I think they don't really have a choice. Given how competitive the West is, maybe things have changed with all the injuries and the fact they're 6-19. So they've got a lot of teams that attempt to climb here, but from what I've heard and read, they've kind of ramped him up to be ready to go at this point. So, and I have a hard time believing that they're going to try to hold him back. Maybe he doesn't reach 35 minutes, but I think the way the game plays out is going to have more to do with anything than that.
All right. Yeah, certainly be exciting to see Ja Morant back in action. We may get to see the number 1 and number 2 picks play each other from the 2019 draft, but Zion Williamson is questionable tonight. What are you expecting here? Maybe a little Trey Murphy, a little Dyson Daniels in the starting 5 if Zion is ruled out?
Yeah, I think Dyson started, but I would still lean Trey Murphy. He's already rostered in a lot of standard leagues as it is, so it's not like he's going to be someone that you can go pick up. But I think in terms of fantasy impact, Trey Murphy will have a bigger impact, but Dyson Daniels as a starter, interesting for the defensive potential, but I don't know, man. I don't really get too excited about him, especially with Brandon Ingram out there as it is. So,
all right, Raph. Thank you, sir. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into the comments. All right, from Black, a frequent questionnaire on the show. Hey, fellas, I need a little pep talk. I've got LaMelo out. I drafted Time Lord, Wiggins, and Collins. Man, you're going to have to pour one out for this guy, Raph. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much 3 burned picks. Miles Turner and Mark Williams out. Oh, my gosh. Bad drafting or bad luck. This is pep talk time, right? This isn't time to get down on yourself. This is pep talk time. This is bad luck, man. I mean, two of these guys, right? LaMelo and Time Lord, they have an extensive injury history. Collins, Wiggins, Miles Turner, Mark Williams, that's luck. That is bad luck. You could have a completely healthy roster right now, or you could be looking at a team full of IR spots. I mean, what do you think here?
Yeah, that's just straight up bad luck. Like in terms of Zach Collins, I don't think a lot of us envisioned his role to change as it has over the last week in terms of him being moved to the bench full time. So, all those injuries, that's really bad luck. Miles Turner practiced on Tuesday, so maybe his absence won't be too long. Then again, he's dealing with a hamstring. My biggest point from a pep talk standpoint, but you're only a third of the way through the season. So I think you just try to tread water here. Make sure you hover around those playoff spots if you're that low in the standings, and just kind of hope that you can figure things out. Guys get healthy come spring and make a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like you said, you got to be paying attention to that waiver wire and looking
Mm-hmm.
for streaming options. I mean, if you're looking for, Miles Turner, you can get an Isaiah Jackson off the waiver wire,
Yeah.
and again, production is going to be a little sporadic, but maybe you can get 8 or 9 rebounds and a couple of blocks out of him. Mark Williams, you got Naughty Nicky hanging out there on some waiver wires. He's been crushing it with Williams
Mm-hmm.
out. So I think there are options here. Maybe in
Yeah.
Portland, it's a little less clear with some of these names that maybe people have never heard of stepping in. But absolutely, you can find some help on the waiver wire and kind of ride this one out. Unfortunately, Collins, I think, is a drop. I wouldn't call him a must roster anymore.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
All right. From Brian B., another frequent questioner on the show, Zach and Raph, howdy, my dudes. First question of many, should I drop Podziemski and pick up Eason? Second question, what the heck is up with Mark Williams? Time to drop. Okay, is it panic time for big Marky Dubs?
Man, I don't know if I'd panic. But obviously, back I don't care if you're a pro athlete or just an average Joe like us. You start dealing with low back issues. That's a really bad sign. So I don't know if I'd fully panic. I think if anything, hopefully you have an IL spot available in your league where you can stash them. So yeah, I don't know about dropping Podziemski to pick up Eason. That's a good question because Tari Eason's been on fire. I think my one thing would be how much do you need rebounding? Because I think that's the one area where Eason probably separates himself from Podziemski. So I think that would be the one question I would ask before making that move. Starting can be a bit overrated in some instances, but you kind of need to think long and hard about that because, again, we don't know when Draymond Green's going to be back.
All right. Yeah, Podziemski and Eason, I would say they are the 1A and 1B of waiver wire pickups now. Obviously, Eason is rostered in a bit more leagues than Podziemski, but yeah, as you mentioned, the rebounding, the defensive stats, triples, pretty high efficiency, low turnovers from Atari Eason. I think the biggest concern between him and Podziemski is Eason going to continue to see extended run while we know Podziemski is probably locked into 30 to 35 minutes a night for the foreseeable future. Okay. What's up, guys? Good to have Raph back in the house. I'll try to cook up some good questions for such a monumental occasion. All right. Bringing the A game today.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Before you say I can't drop Podziemski, rest of the players are DeRozan, Kobe, Isaiah Hartenstein, Tyler Hero, Mark Williams, Triple J, Cat Keegan, Jalen W, Trey Murphy, Fox, and Hallie. I think this comes down to upside, right? Do you view Tari Eason as the higher upside play than Podziemski? I do. I think if you have some of that wiggle room, this is a pretty strong roster. Yeah, I'd say maybe pick up Eason and just see how things play out. What do you think, Raph?
Yeah, you have that roster. I certainly think you can afford to make that switch. Kobe White's been on fire recently. I think his streak of 14 straight games with at least 3 3-pointers ended on Monday, but he still played really well, knocked down 2 in a win at Philadelphia. I really like how he's been playing. I like how the Bulls have been playing, period. So you have him on a hot streak. The overall roster looks really good. I think the one concern may be Tyrese Halliburton. Banged up a bit recently, but I think once he's back in there, you're going to get elite fantasy value as it is. So with this roster, I think I would make that switch and grab Tari Eason right now.
All right. Which guard breakout is the most sustainable rest of season, and which one is the most sustainable beyond this season? Ooh, I know if Noah was here, we would have an automatic answer.
Yeah.
I think for me, Kobe White this season and Derek White beyond this season. I think that's where I'll go. I'm still concerned that Kobe White has just overnight gone from basically a chucker with no peripherals to a guy that's, I mean, just putting up some monster numbers on pretty good efficiency every single evening. I'm not sure how long that can be sustained, but he can certainly stay hot for a while. I think Derek White just has he's been the most consistent of these guys, and I think he has probably the easiest path to maintaining this type of production beyond this season. What do you think, Raph?
Yeah, I think he's the one with the fewest, he doesn't really have the variable that the other two have. Like Tyus Jones is going to be a free agent next summer, so we really can't say too much about his value beyond this season. And he's on a really bad team, so I don't really like him in this question either way. As for Kobe White, his variable is what happens with Zach LaVine when he returns, and also where the Bulls are in the standings at that point. Do they try to move someone? So LaVine's probably going to be tougher to move. He's got 4 more years left on his deal. And then I think that's been part of the reason why Kobe's been able to control things from a shot selection standpoint. Don't have to worry as much about where his next shot is coming from. So I'm with you on Derek White in terms of rest of the season. Also, I think, man, I would probably go beyond this season as well, because I don't think his role is going to change too much in Boston as they continue to look to win that 18th championship.
All right. Loving it. All right. I'm ashamed of myself. I am the #1 Exum fan. I'm not sure if you've ever spoken with Adam King before. I wrote a piece calling him the best international draft talent the league had seen. I bought back this year only to drop him when Irving came back. Ouch. I don't think we can give a pep talk for that one. I think that's just sorry to hear it.
I can give you a pep talk for the first part. Like, we all make bad prognostications, especially about draft talent. So keep your head up on that one. As for dropping Exum, I'm hoping you can say that it happened after the Mavs erroneously tweeted out a starting lineup in which he was, I think from last night, I think he was supposed to be coming off the bench, but he actually started. So maybe you saw that and dropped him last night. That's all I can give you on that one, though.
All right. Moving down the list, is red hot Dante DiVincenzo a hold or a sell high? Tibbs tends to stick with the guys who earn his trust. What do you think here, man? I mean, I think it's Quentin Grimes' run with this team seems to have been kind of it seems like his minutes are pretty much gone now. And with Mitchell Robinson out, there's more minutes to go around, obviously, across the entire roster. What do you think about DiVincenzo? Seems pretty sustainable.
Yeah, I think he can. He's had some games, a couple games where he's been a bit quiet offensively. But I think overall he may fit better on that end of the floor than Grimes did. The one concern is the defense, but I think that's more about Mitchell Robinson not being out there than anything. It's not like DiVincenzo can't defend his position. He certainly can. So, man, I think I would hold him because I don't know how much value you're going to get him as a sell high, because I don't think he's played out of his mind recently. So I wouldn't really think of him as a full-on sell high right now, to be honest with you.
All right. I asked Zach and Noah this before, but Raph, who is your favorite basketball player ever, current or retired?
That's a good question. I don't really know if I'd probably say Magic Johnson in terms of like a retired player. So I don't know. I think in terms of like growing up, I had more like college players who were my favorites. Just, growing up in Connecticut, watching the Big East, all those great players. You think about like the late Cliff Robinson at UConn, or even like a Billy Owens at Syracuse. So I think some of those guys like stood out to me more as a kid. But in terms of like an NBA player, I would go Magic. Just 6'9" point guard. The way he ran the show at the Lakers, he would be my pick personally.
One of my favorite players, Rip Hamilton. Any love for him out of
Oh
UConn?
yeah, I love Rip. I was a teenager then though, so I kind of left him out. But yeah, I think that mid '90s Big East era was great. I wore 44 in high school because of John Wallace and Austin Crozier. So yeah, a lot of great talent there. Kerry Kittles, Allen Iverson, obviously. So yeah.
Right on, man. Yeah, I'm still sad about West Virginia leaving the Big East and moving to the Big 12. It was
Yeah,
not the right move. But
agree.
anyway, we're here to talk fantasy hoops. All right. Does the Tari Eason breakout hurt Amon T's role rest of season on that second unit? What do you think?
That's a good question. I don't think so, to be honest with you, because I think Amin can bring a versatile skill set to the table in terms of being a playmaker, solid defender as well. I believe that they will find a way to fit both of them into the rotation once Amin is healthy. Obviously, he had the ankle injury now, and then another injury that sidelined him recently. That's the biggest concern. But I don't think it'll hurt him too much, just because I don't know if that was a great situation for a rookie to begin with, just because of the veterans that they brought in there. So I think he'll be okay eventually. Short term, I don't know. I think maybe we were expecting a little bit too much of him in Houston because that was a situation where some of those vets really needed to play. Once they signed Dylan Brooks, that may have been the biggest issue for those guys. You think about it, because he's going to be out there plenty, and there's fewer minutes on the wing to go around.
All right. Moving down, should I drop PJ Washington for Andrew Wiggins in Roto? What do you think here, Raf? To one player who is not been so great for another player who has been really not so great. The biggest question is, does it matter? PJ Washington for Andrew Wiggins. Is this a needle moving decision one way or another?
Right now, no. I think the only justification for doing it would be you're betting on Wiggins working his way back into the starting lineup at some point. That's pretty much all I have here, because it's really, I don't really know if this moves the needle either way, because it's not like, say, Miles Bridges is going to be banned from playing in a bunch of games like he was in Toronto the other night. So I don't think you can count on PJ being that guy. But on the flip side, Andrew's been really bad in fantasy, like whether you're talking per game or roto. So, man, I don't know. I'd probably not want either one of them on my roster, but it's not really the choice here.
I wouldn't either. And with Andrew Wiggins, I think it's easy to look at him and Klay Thompson when they have really big games and say, "Oh my gosh, maybe this is the time for a turning point." Wiggins 25 points the other night. I mean, they needed all of that, right? This was a 4-point win over the god awful Blazers. Him and Klay Thompson did something. Steph Curry obviously had his 3-point streak broken.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Wiggins is going to crop up every now and then with these big scoring games, but it's not something that we've seen him do consistently. He'll go out in his next game and probably score 4 or 5 points. Who knows? All right. From Thomas, would you sell high if you have Tyus Jones because the Wizards are a bad team? Inconsistent minutes when they get blown out, maybe target a top 50 or 75. I need more rebounds. I think anytime you can sell high, I think the rule of thumb is you have to do it. And Tyus Jones is not going to be a top 50 or top 75 guy the rest of the season when it's all said and done. If you can get top 50, you do it in a heartbeat, and same with top 75. It's been great seeing what Tyus Jones has been doing, but I mean, prior to what's it been, 7-8 games of this kind of production, he was a drop candidate. So I'm not going to let a couple weeks streak, kind of sway my judgment. If I can get a really good deal for him, I'm moving him.
Yeah, you said it all right there. Like if you can get that type of value for him in return, you do it and you don't look back.
All right. And do you think this turnaround for Utah with both Sexton and Font playing great, just a product of finally having a healthy Walker Kessler? And we're not talking Comic Sans here. We're talking about Simone Fontecchio playing great. So do you think this? What do you think, Raph? Is this a product of having a healthy Walker Kessler, or is this something else? You calling bull on the young bull?
Um, I'm pretty high on Sexton and Taylor Horton Tucker right now, just because there really isn't anywhere else for them to turn from an injury standpoint. Jordan Clarkson's out, Keontae George is out, leaves those two and Chris Dunn basically to handle those minutes on the perimeter. So I think Sexton and Horton Tucker, I think their turnarounds are real right now. The way that they're playing. As for Fontecchio, I think his run may be coming to an end pretty soon here. John Collins made his return on Monday. What the Jazz tend to do is bring him off the bench that first game back. So I think eventually Collins will be back with the starters. So I know having Kessler back there really helps defensively, but I don't think it's just him that's the reason why those guys have turned things around. Like, those guys are legitimately playing good basketball right now.
All right. And we are getting a comment from Cal Chad TTV saying that there was a missed part one, but I do not see it in the comments. If you want to go ahead and post that again, we'll be happy to cut it up with some more Jazz conversation. But yeah, Colin Sexton has been obviously awesome. I think he was another guy that was a clear drop candidate early in the season. But he's really turned it around as of late. Keontae George and Jordan Clarkson injuries have obviously been a big help. And then Taylor Horton Tucker, is that a guy that you're interested in off of the waivers right now? A guy that was really good as a facilitator to start the season, headed back to the bench. And then now I think at least 20 points in 2 of his last 3, if I remember right, and has still been pretty solid with the steals and assists. So that's another guy who is going to be widely available. Colin Sexton, I think, rostered close to 60% of leagues. THT available in greater than 70% of leagues. What do you think about him? Somebody to keep an eye on rest of season, or just for the Clarkson injury?
I think just for now. Yeah, I think Sexton offers a bit more once the perimeter rotation is whole. So, but THT for now is definitely worth picking up, I believe.
All right. And here's part one of this question. Is Sexton time Colin Sexton back, finally with the Jazz starting to play slightly better ball than Detroit Mercy is playing in the Horizon League? Raph, you're the college basketball expert, man. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think we kind of hit on this question just now. So yeah, I think he's back. We'll see what happens rest of the season once they get those other guards back, like we mentioned. But yeah, for now, Colin Sexton is back.
All right. Are you dropping or holding Ausar Thompson? What do we think about this guy? He has been polarizing recently due to some questionable lineup decisions.
I'm holding. I think at this point, Monty Williams kind of just grasping at straws because they just want to end that losing streak, point blank. However they can do it, they're going to try to. But I think once they can do it, knock on wood, they get it done pretty soon. They're going to be at a point where they have to play Ausar Thompson 30-plus minutes a night. Like, it would be inexcusable not to in their position because you need to see what you have there in terms of his individual skills, how he meshes potentially with Cade Cunningham, if they believe in Cade as a future cornerstone of that franchise. So I would hold on to him personally, but if your roster is such that you need help immediately, I can see dropping him as well.
All right. And the Pistons on a 24-game losing streak. The record is 28. So here's their next 5, Raph. They host the Jazz, at Nets, host the Nets, at Celtics, host the Raptors. There's their next 5. Will they break the infamous 28-game losing streak? Are there any of these games that they can win?
Utah is in the second game of a back-to-back when they play Detroit. So that may be the one. Maybe you can pick them off. But once you lose this many games in a row, it feels like every opposing team's sole motivation is to not be the one. And that can be a lot to compete against. So I don't think they're going to get Boston. Toronto, maybe at the end of that stretch that you read off, that's possible. They got 2 against Brooklyn. Yeah, I think Utah might be the one that they need to get because the other ones are home and home against Brooklyn, possibly. But yeah, if they don't beat the Jazz, it might reach 30. And I sincerely hope we don't see that.
Raph, will I be able to get my kids some extra Christmas gifts if I bet Pistons money line against the Jazz in 2 days?
For entertainment purposes only, I would advise you not to do that. But well, who knows, man?
All right, I am curious what the line is going to be on that one. Yeah, Pistons are a bit of a joke right now. And yes, it wouldn't be a Rotoworld Q&A if we didn't talk in depth about the Detroit Pistons rotation insanity. Is James Wiseman back? Are you, Raph, are you a wise man to pick up James Wiseman off the waiver wire?
Was he ever here? Like, serious question. Like, but yeah, he played pretty well last night against the Hawks, and they were competitive. But the lack of defensive stats in that game, 10 and 7 is fine, but no blocks or anything. It's like, man, I'm not feeling that. Like, it would probably take another injury to Marvin Bagley in addition to not having Jalen Duren for me to get on the Wiseman bandwagon. Even then, that would be a schedule play, but they'd have to be on a light schedule night for me to go through with that.
Any interest in Marvin Bagley either? I mean, I feel like he's kind of doing the same as what he always does. He's kind of in that 13 to 17 point range, 5 or 6 rebounds, every now and then a double-digit rebound game, and maybe a block or a steal, but usually you don't count on that either. Not much to offer from Bagley. I'm not interested. I don't know if you have a different take.
My man had 1 rebound last night. 1. Like, if the scoring's on, he scored 17 on good shooting, but the potential game-to-game lows for a Bagley or even a Wiseman just scare me from a fantasy standpoint.
Agreed. And the interesting thing about these guys is Bagley doesn't turn 25 until March. It feels like he's been around the league for, forever. And James Wiseman, he's still 22 years old. Is there a chance either of these guys ever do more than what they're doing right now, or are we watching them at their ceilings, when guys like Duren are out of the lineup?
I think that this may be the most that we get from them. Just like you mentioned, no Jalen Duren. I think the highs that we've seen from him when healthy are far higher, far exceed what either Bagley or Wiseman bring to the table. The scoring, the rebounding, the defensive stats. So yeah, they're going to get opportunities because they have size and some athleticism, but man, I don't know, man. I just don't know if either one's going to be able to turn things around at this point.
And finally, while we're harping on James Wiseman, was that the greatest draft bust of the last, 5 or 10 years? The Warriors picking him 2 over LaMelo Ball?
Might be. Like, I've tried to make excuses for him. He came in during that COVID year, only played 3 games at Memphis before sitting. Okay, he just needs to get game reps. But at a certain point, you have to earn those game reps too. Like, they're not just handing them out. So I think, yeah, you look at it, they obviously weren't going to get Anthony Edwards, but LaMelo Ball, even with the injuries, in that Warriors system, that would have been pretty fun to watch in terms of them getting up and down the floor.
And on, I'm mostly intrigued by the 3 steals in his last 4 games, and obviously gives good percentages. This is talking about James Wiseman, but I think we've touched on it already for Wiseman. It's going to be inconsistent for a big man, and if he was averaging 1.5 blocks per game or more, I think totally fine there. But yeah, it's just you're not getting the defensive contributions that you hope for.
Yeah.
Okay. Any chance the bad teams start sitting their players, i.e. Cade, Lowry, DeRozan, What do you think? We're a third of the way through the season, Raph. Is it time to start tanking already?
I wouldn't be concerned about Cade just because of his age and the fact that they're still trying to figure out what that rebuild is going to look like. I think he'll be fine. Marketing, I wouldn't be concerned right now, just because we're only a third of the way into the season. I don't think they're bad enough to where you drop a guy, and have those injury management nights. So not too worried there. DeRozan, the Bulls are only a game out of that last playing spot, and they're playing pretty good basketball right now. So I'm not too concerned right now. I just think it's a little too early to start worrying about tanking. Mid to late January, when that trade deadline starts to hover around, then you can probably have those more serious conversations. But right now, not really too worried.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you here. It's too early to be thinking about those kind of things. What level of concern is there Halliburton getting grinded into dust? Well, that's okay. With the workload and the dependency on him to carry the team to the finals. 279 over the last 7 days and terrible game post knee. Yeah, Pacers on a 4-game losing streak. Things have not been good for the team or for Halliburton individually.
Yeah.
I mean, with as blistering hot as he was right before the in-season tournament and then those first 2 games before they faced the Lakers, it's a season. It's a long season. It's a season of ebbs and flows. He's not going to be dropping 35 and 17 every single night. It's impossible. I think he'll be totally fine. And we saw last season, the team was completely dependent on him to carry the load. And yeah, obviously he did kind of break down as the season wore on. Raph, concerns about him missing time late in the season or about the Pacers in general?
The Pacers they're one of the most entertaining teams in the league just because one night they can score 150, the next they can give up that many. So I think the concerns go well beyond Tyrese Halliburton. I think he's the least of my concerns from a gameplay standpoint, just because they don't really guard anyone. And obviously no Miles Turner against the Clippers. You lose a rim protector of that quality. That's a really tough situation to be in. So, man, it's not like, obviously no Andrew Nembhard. So right now they're kind of having to rely on Halliburton a bit more. But I think once they get that point guard rotation full, I think they'll be okay. I think Halliburton's going to be fine. So I'm not too worried there.
All right. Thoughts on the trade value of Evan Mobley, considering he's out until the All-Star break? I think Evan Mobley is, at this point, he's a deal sweetener. I don't think you're going to get much for him one-on-one, but I think if you have if you're trying to get somebody that's like a top 10 player and you want to trade, a second rounder plus Evan Mobley in order to maybe upgrade and get some additional production, I think that's probably your best case scenario for Mobley. Otherwise, you're going to be selling for pennies on the dollar, and I would just rather hold at that point.
Yeah, you pretty much have to hope that any team you're dealing with has a surplus of big men on their roster already, so they can potentially afford to stash him in an IL spot. Other than that, I think he's a hold for me.
Okay. Thoughts on this? Should I should I instead keep Podziemski and add Eason and drop Mark Williams? And just an FYI, no IL. So no, I think for me it's you keep Eason and you keep Mark Williams. You're not dropping Mark Williams.
Yeah, you hold on to him.
Okay. Flipping around, will Detroit win question? Will Detroit be bad enough to fix the brutal cold streak that Mikal Bridges is on? Probably.
Yeah, I can see that. Especially with the one, I think the one wing that would trust to defend him is Alsar, and his minutes have fluctuated so wildly recently that, I could see Detroit being that slump buster for Mikal Bridges, especially playing them home and away over the weekend. So,
All right. Is Michael Porter Jr. a buy low or sell high? What are we thinking here about Michael Porter Jr., Raph?
I personally would hold him. Like he's at the top 75 in 9 cat. I think that's about what you would expect from him. His ADP was 81, so he's a little bit higher than that. But yeah, I personally wouldn't pick either. I would just hold on to. He would be a hold for me.
Yeah, as you mentioned, top 70 player right now. I don't know how you're going to be able to get him in a buy low situation.
Yeah,
Yeah, as far as a sell high, again, I'm always in favor of selling high. If you can get a top 50 player for Michael Porter Jr., absolutely. But I'm not really sure who in your league is going to offer somebody of top 50 value for Michael Porter Jr. Unless you play in a league with Michael Porter Jr.'s mom. In that case, then yeah, absolutely make the deal. Okay. Last one for me for the week. Also, have a great holiday, guys. Yeah, thank you for tuning in, man,
thank
and
you.
hope you do
Yeah.
the same. You guys got any fun DFS punt plays for tonight? Raph, we just talked about it. I know you're looking to buy the special someone in your life a little something extra for Christmas this year. You're in on the DK Millie Maker tonight, right? What do you got going?
I'm absolutely terrible at NBA DFS. It's basically like throwing money into a fire pit with me, so I try to avoid that. But man, I'm sorry, I really don't have anything good for you on a DFS front in terms of punts. So yeah, I'm of no help in that regard there.
All right. And yeah, I haven't looked at who the cheap options on the slate are tonight. I do DFS every now and then. But if we want to just flip this question around to kind of be a little more inclusive for season long and DFS,
Mhm.
who are some guys that might be rostered in, let's call it 15% or 20% of leagues or less that you might consider streaming tonight for a small slate?
Let me pull up this. Man. Let's see who we got. I think Phoenix is on tonight, right?
Phoenix and
Okay.
Portland play in one of the late games.
Okay. I'm sorry, I need to look this up because I don't really memorize all the rostered percentages. So maybe Jordan Goodwin at 4%. I don't know about the rest of the season play, but I think tonight, still no Bradley Beal. I think for a couple weeks he could be in play as like a deep league option. You're not going to get elite production from him. Rostered in like I think 4% of Yahoo leagues right now. So I would say Jordan Goodwin, if anything, if you're looking for a really cheap play on a 4-game night.
All right. And I'm just kind of looking over some DFS slates right here. I think Jose Alvarado,
Mm-hmm.
with his ability to rack up steals and triples, I think he can give you some extra points. Scoot Henderson is a hit or miss option. So if he's really feeling it, he can get you plenty of points. Ditto a Malcolm Brogdon or Jeremy Sohan. So I think guys like that will probably be pretty affordable no matter where you're playing. Eric Gordon, if he can catch fire. Same thing with Malachi Branham. Not necessarily interested in guys like Vince Williams or Moses Moody. But yeah, some of those guys that I just mentioned there. And if we're looking at, if you're looking at some of your big man options, ooh, this is a tough slate for big men. I'll tell you what, man. I will take a shot on Bismack Biyombo, who is not on the injury report tonight against New Orleans. It's a tough
Mm-hmm.
matchup for him, but he's somebody that I think can be a slate breaker. Andrew
What about
Eubanks is
oh, go ahead. I would say Zach Collins at looking at FanDuel is 5,100. No Wembanyama tonight, so yeah, he may be worth a look back in the starting lineup for sure. So
right on. All right, dropping some nuggets, Raph. Appreciate it. All right. Do you guys answer fantasy questions via DM or replies on Twitter? Yes and yes. From myself and from what I've seen on Twitter, Raph is very responsive as well.
yeah, I my DMs are not open So that's not going to work. But if you just send me a basic reply on Twitter, I'll do my best to respond.
Yeah, when I was trying to get on with NBC, I tried sliding into your DMs and
Yeah.
realized they were
Yeah.
not open.
Yeah, we ain't doing that, man.
All right. The one name I was looking at was KBD, but will he be in the rotation tonight? What do you think about Keita Bates Diop tonight?
That's the thing. Like their rotation has been a bit unpredictable on the wings. There's one game, I think it was assumed that he would figure prominently in rotation. He didn't check into like the third quarter game last week, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, looking at this, no Josh Okogie, but Nasir Little's available. So, and then also Yuta Watanabe is available too. So I think you have like a few options there. None are all that appealing. So, yeah, because the last thing you want to do is take up a slot, even if it's cheap DFS play, and they don't get rotation minutes. So I'd probably leave him alone personally.
All right, and this isn't a question, but WCJ just announced to be active for tomorrow.
Yes,
Is
sir.
it time to bid farewell to our Georgian king, Goga Batadze?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe you give him one more game just to see how quickly they bring along Carter in terms of his minutes and spot in the rotation. But yeah, I think if anything, you drop Moritz Wagner first. Well, actually, no. Let me correct myself. I would probably drop Bitadze right now because we've seen in the past when Wendell's available, he hasn't been in the rotation. So, yeah, I think the Georgian King may be getting dethroned as soon as Wednesday night. So,
Such a sad state of affairs, too, man. He has been phenomenal. 20 starts for Wendell Carter Jr., plenty of blocks, efficient shooting, rebounds, steals. It's been a nice run. So we will see how quickly they bring along Wendell Carter Jr. But yeah, it's probably about time for Goga to go. All right. Thanks for answering all of our questions. Y'all are the best. Appreciate you, Brian.
yeah,
Thanks for
thank
the
you,
love,
Brian.
man. And from Jermaine Luttrell. Evening, guys. Good evening.
Good evening, Jermaine.
All right, Raph, I think those are all of our questions. Unless some additional questions trickle in here over the next minute, I think we can go ahead and call this one a wrap. Our last show before the Christmas holiday. Do you have anything, any words of wisdom to add to fantasy managers here?
Don't make any rash decisions. I think holiday party season, when you get a couple beverages in, you get a little fired up, and don't get upset and drop someone on the basis of one game if they have a prominent spot in their rotation. So exercise a little patience.
Right on. Yes, as Raph is preaching temperance to fantasy managers at this time of year. So yeah, that's a good message. This is just as a heads up to the usual listeners and people that tune in to ask questions. This will be my last show doing the live stream indefinitely. Have some other commitments that are taking up a good bit of time right now, so I'm going to step away from doing the show. Leave you in Noah's very, very capable hands. I'm not sure if he's going to be, Raph, if he's going to be bringing you on more often or how that's going to go. But yeah, no more from me for a little while. So just wanted to express my gratitude to everybody over the last year and a half that has tuned into this show and asked questions. It has been a blast for me to be able to be here with you guys every week answering those questions. Looks like we have just a couple more questions. Raph, if you have time, you want to knock these out real quick?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's just do blitz, rapid fire. Norman Powell, worth a hold for now.
Yes, holding.
All right, no for me. Okay. Don't make any quick decisions. Someone in my 14-team league dropped Walker Kessler, and I managed to get him. Yes. Well done, Brian B. No pep talk needed for that one. Yes.
Good job.
Markelle Fultz, ceiling in points. I'm assuming we're talking about a points league.
Hmm.
Not as valuable in a points league as he is in a categories league.
Yeah.
I think ceiling. Oh, top. What are we talking here? Top 90, maybe top 100. And that's assuming he can stay on the court, which I have my serious doubts
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. I'd give him 75 at the highest. And even that may be a stretch.
Yeah. Marcus Smart rumored to play Thursday. Who specifically would that hurt, or is it no one with Derrick Rose out? What do you think here? I mean, I think potentially it hurts John Morant more than anybody with Morant coming back. Maybe we thought he'd have that backcourt kind of locked up to himself for a little bit, but any differing thoughts here? I know Memphis has kind of shuffled through a bunch of different guys here over the last couple of weeks with nothing really working.
I would say David Roddy, if anything.
Okay.
So I kind of feel like the plan was to start Morant and Smart together and shift Desmond Bane to the 3. So I think that's what we end up seeing once we get to that point. So I don't think Smart's going to hurt Ja. I think if anything, David Roddy's going to be the one who takes the hit.
All right. Yeah, Rowdy Roddy. All right. And that is it for the questions. I see a few comments in the chat here saying thank you for answering questions. And I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in and asking the questions. I know Noah will be back next week, the day after Christmas. Raph, I'm not sure if he's hit you up to join the show. But from what I've seen, every time you jump on here, man, people tune in. People love to hear from you. So I'm sure they will be excited to have you back next week. Raph, do you want to plug anything for the Rotoworld basketball show that you're working on right now with Dan and Vaughn?
Yeah, episode tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about Ja Morant's return, what that rotation looks like in Memphis, then also looking at a 10-game Wednesday night slate and the rest of the week before we head into Christmas. So should be fun as always.
All right. Awesome. And yes, guys, out there, if you're not tuning into the Rotoworld basketball show, Dan Titus from Yahoo does an awesome job with Raph and Vaughn here at Rotoworld. So we'll go ahead and wrap that up, guys. Thanks again, Raph. Hope you have a wonderful holiday, man, and we'll be talking.
Sounds good. Happy holidays, everybody.